Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Yo, what's up, Jesse? It's my favorite duelist.
Favorite duelist?
I'm glad to have you here. Yes, you were the man with the plan. Do you have a webcam at all, or if you're comfortable, not comfortable, it's up to you, etc.
So I can't. I have to move my phone though. If I'm gonna do that, I don't have a webcam. I have a phone camera.
Okay. I mean, it's up to you. That's fair.
I don't care. What do you want me to do?
I mean, yeah, if you can turn on, that'd be cool.
Okay. So what I can do is actually add my phone accounts to this chat.
Oh, if it's like convoluted, then we don't need to bother.
It's not convoluted. I can just do it in 1 second. Just do it and take 2 seconds.
Yeah, sure, no problem. You old fat guy streaming, thank you for the 5 subs, appreciate it. Chat, sorry if I missed all your subs tonight. We are at 20 hours minus, very cool. Alright, let's see how this bootleg setup works. See, I know, you're used to this from Remote Duel, this makes sense.
Yeah, I'm also not great at equipment. I'm good at problem solving, but tech is not it. So, second.
Man, Yu-Gi-Oh players with their 5-head plays and stuff, and Jesse out here with the tech support. There he is. There's the man himself.
Right, let's see if I can lean my phone up against.
Yeah, you might want to like lean it up against
something. I don't know. I'm gonna turn this off.
All right, there we go, dude. Okay, Vlad, are you here? Okay, you can like record for YouTube or something if you're about.
All right, perfect.
Yeah,
it's me in the chat. Hello, Vlad.
He's the editor, man. All right, what's up, Jesse? It's great to have you on.
He said he's your slave.
That is true. Yeah. So, yeah, you're here. You're Jesse Cotton. You're arguably the best person in the world who's touched cardboard since, I want to say, like, Patrick Hoban, who I spoke to last, what was that, yesterday? I guess technically like an hour ago. That probably makes sense. Yeah, no, I'm sorry to, like, go all in on you like this, Jesse, but, I mean, there's a certain degree and a certain level that a person hits. That I feel like you've ascended to, which is, you know, there's people who might like regularly top, and then there's people who win a major event on multiple continents. What is this like extra Super Saiyan level of Yu-Gi-Oh that you've reached, and how?
Sorry, Sam is messaging me talking shit about you. I don't know.
Real quick, what did he say?
I'm not gonna. It's fine.
Oh, it's fine? Okay, Sam. All right, I get
it. So I think maybe a little overstated. There are a lot of other really, really good players, a lot of accomplishments as well. But I think maybe just haven't branded themselves on social media as well as I have, so they get overlooked. I think I'm definitely high up there. How did I get to this point? Very driven. And I'm good at problem solving, and I think pretty fast. I mean, and it's been years and years of practice. I've been playing since I was 5, so.
Which is the interesting thing, because, I mean, I never heard of you until, like, God, I don't know, when did you really come onto the scene? Like, you just sort of exploded out of nowhere and just had, like, boom, 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 multiple tops and wins in a row.
I think the first time you actually would have heard about me was you interviewed Dale. Several years ago. You're still Glasgow Yu-Gi-Oh at the time, I'm pretty sure.
That was an oldie, yeah.
And he mentioned me because I've known him for, I think, since I was literally a little kid. As someone to look out for. So, I mean, it was kind of gradual. And I think in Europe, maybe you would have noticed it less because it's harder to keep up with the who's doing well when you don't ever see them, especially within the live stream. Like, so for me, I traveled to anything that was in driving distance to Toronto within 10 hours. And I did well in Dragon Duels, like ish. I got first place at the Dragon Duels, the 100th YCS. That one wasn't drivable, but it was a birthday present. And then I got actually my first feature match at a main event was against Hoban. We were both 7-0 at New Jersey.
What format was that?
And it was Secaucus 2012. It was Mermails right before Dragon Rulers. And I was put on tilt after the match because he OTK'd me twice with Infernities. It was really, I got so destroyed. and I was still young, and I didn't know how to deal with losses well, so I tilted and didn't top that one. But so I mean, like people in Toronto knew me because after about 2 years of 10 events in a row, me going like barely not topping, I had built kind of a name for myself. Then I got top 16 at nationals, and third at the next YCS, going undefeated in Swiss. So people had kind of started to know me, but again, it wasn't much, right? I think the biggest thing for me was after Worlds, the first time I attended for Worlds points, I decided that after like how much I enjoyed traveling to Japan, that I wanted to start flying and traveling and like being more active in the game than just driving to places. And at that point, it was my first year university, so I had some more freedom and some more money. And then I won London, and that was international. Like that's kind of why it looks like I exploded, but it was, at least from my perspective, somewhat casual. And I've also, I mean, I guess I traveled more from then, so I was at more events to do well at.
What you're saying is that you were always amazing, and you just didn't have that access.
Oh, absolutely not, absolutely not. I mean, even like when I was doing well, like there's still improvements to be made. Always, when I was doing well in 2018, I used to complain that 2018 I had I think 9 or 8 tops, but I only won a single match in Top Cut that whole year, which was really rough. So, and I mean, I may have complained about it back then, but now I look back and I think there were a good amount of things I did wrong that I could have improved upon. So, I mean, still improving constantly.
How do you break that barrier from bubbling constantly to topping, and then like even when you are topping, like to like winning in Top Cut? Like how do you those are like, you know, I feel like there's like 3 or 4 major barriers for the average Ego player, right? There's like, you know, bubbling constantly and then hitting the Top Cut, and then after Top Cut there's like winning in Top Cut, and then that final like getting a win or something. Like how do you supersede those?
It's hard, right? That's why for me it was very not instantaneous at all. Like, I definitely face each of those barriers people don't realize. And I think confidence is a big thing for me. So for me to progress from not topping, like bubbling every event I attended, and to top my first event nationals, required me to be more confident with my own decision making and plays. And I think almost every single time where I felt like I've done really bad or way worse than I expected was mostly because I went with a standardized play instead of something that I deduced with my own reasoning. Like for example, in that the Secaucus event where I lost to Hoban, on the bubble, I opened up a hand of Pike, Dragoons, and Sphere. And what I would always do when I went first in the mirror match was set the Sphere, be reactive, and try and then build my hands to beat whatever they did. But I'd also seen almost everybody else go Pike Dragoons immediately to try to set up for an OTK, which I think is greedy. But I was on the bubble under pressure, and I wasn't great with, I guess, mental strength back then. So I went Pike Dragoon instead of Sphere. And my opponent punished me by like mind controlling my Pike, reborning my Dragoon, making a Dweller, and then killing me back. So it may be a weird punish, but it was still something where like I got punished for not just doing what I was used to. And another thing that also really hurt me, similarly, I guess was the next step. I was more confident, but not fully. Was in 2016, and my third top was top 8 at nationals. Back when it was top 6 go to Worlds, and I got destroyed on live stream in top 8. I like drew really bad. That's fine, but we had a redemption match for go to Worlds, and I was on live stream again, and I was just so nervous. Just qualifying, and I was also one match away the year before as well from qualifying for Worlds. So for me, it was extremely nerve-wracking. And in Game 3, I opened up Maxi Reaper in time, pretty much, which should be an auto win in the BA mirror. And I was extremely good at BA mirrors. I think I've lost maybe less than 5 ever. So it should have been easy Worlds for me. And I'm searching off Skarm, and I know I should not grab Tour Guide. Everyone else does it, but grabbing Tour Guide is stupid because that's the only way you become vulnerable to stuff like Fog Blade or any of his counter cards. The BAs are so much naturally better at defending themselves and extending through fields. So I'd always grab a Zero Grab there, but for some reason I grabbed the Tour Guide. I panicked, and my opponents got very lucky in top deck. The only way to somehow burn me in time, and then also put me in a position where I couldn't top deck out of it. But if I had just Noster's Tour Guide, I would have won in every single world. So even though my opponent got lucky, I put myself in a situation where there was a chance I lost, and that one stung a lot. But so it's like that, like building confidence in your own reasoning and your own plays. It's important. Like when I coach people, I don't want to tell them what's correct. I want to tell them how to think and the thought processes that I use that they can apply them to themselves. That's what's really important to seeing success.
All those kind of examples you just gave, I feel this is almost kind of a side point here, but I feel like I don't know if that really happens anymore in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, does it? Like I feel like
absolutely it does. I think Dryton's a huge thing like that as well. Like I can't stand watching Dryton players because they do not to be mean, but they always go for the standard like cookie cutter 2-card combos. When that deck excels when you kind of freestyle it and learn interaction points to I guess a detailed degree. I think it absolutely exists in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, but you have to be comfortable with the deck to really understand it.
What is the difference between being confident and knowing what the correct play is? Because I feel like
I mean, you can be confident and it can be wrong, and that'll happen, of course, too. But I think at least when that happens, like a loss is not the end of the world. If you lose, there'll be another event, another match. It'll something to learn off of, right? I guess the other big thing with getting better is you should never blame luck. I mean, you can sometimes, but you should always try and reflect and see what went wrong. Either if you drew bad, maybe your deck building was wrong. If you were in a situation where if you played differently, you could have won. Analyze maybe if there was a way if you went back that you could have played better. So yeah, if you are confident in something and ends up being wrong, that can still be a good reflecting moment for you to improve, and eventually you will have a really refined decision making toolkit. And that's important because then once that is good, then your confidence will actually be spot on. So even if it's not good immediately, that being confident in your own decision making, it should, if as long as you're being analytical of your matches, help you refine your gameplay to the point where being confident in your plays will see success.
Okay. It's really interesting listening to you talk about this right now because I feel like a lot of what you're saying is I've always envisioned you as, the deck building guy and the guy who would focus on, make sure that your deck is built well and you've prepared well and you've come up with some kind of like, counter meta strategy to what this event entails, etc. But I hear you right now just talking a lot about technical play as like the focus.
So that's actually what I got my start in. It's kind of funny, right? So for my first 4 tops, I played Burning Abyss, and my decks weren't fantastic. Yeah, there's still a lot of meta choices to be made, but my first 4 were all Burning Abyss because I excelled very well in my matchup knowledge, my technical play with Burning Abyss. So my roots were technical play. And through years and years of growing up in those type of formats, like Mermail Mirrors and Plant Mirrors, that was what I had to do. The deck building aspect came later. I actually mostly came later on as I was in school and I was taking business courses. I took data management. I started learning to do the calculations myself. It kind of interested me, and that's when I got a little more into it. But honestly, that's not where I started. I did love making random combo decks, but I was typically less competitive. Just now, sometimes I guess you hit a miracle deck that ends up being good. Although it happens very infrequently where your random bullshit deck really is just a random bullshit deck.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe sometimes it's a bit of a balance between finding and innovating something new. But I mean, from how I feel, at least I personally, what I think myself, what I struggle with is like, I feel like I can make a decent deck and I understand like the side patterns and how to like, counter the perceived best deck of the format and stuff like that. But I've always found myself, struggling to make the right decision in a game. And I don't know if that's sometimes down to nerves or overthinking or overcomplicating. And I don't really know sometimes like, what like a general form of advice or something you could like suggest as like the right way to like improve upon technical play.
So, I mean, it's so hard to say because everyone is different. And for me, it was learning over time to trust my own decision process, my own decision making, like I talked about earlier. For the nerve thing, because the nerve thing and the overthinking is pretty much describing how I felt when I make the play everyone else did, because I thought I was overthinking what I was doing. But in retrospect, if I just did what I was thinking about, I would have been better off. Um, I don't know if I have really good advice for that because it's kind of general. Other than
There's lots of practice.
try and yeah, it's practice, right? For technical play, it's almost always going to be a lot of practice, and it's something like I'm even not that great with right now because I don't play that much. Or when I entered the YCS and I was making a lot of mistakes, a lot of small, and didn't cost me a game, but they could have. I can definitely feel myself like, wow, like my technical play wasn't up to par. Even if I'm spotting some stuff, there's still stuff that's up there. Technical play definitely matters a lot more than people make it out. Yes, deck building is extremely important, more so than ever probably right now, but still need to know what you're doing in the game. And repetition is important, making yourself comfortable with interactions. Yeah, I think, yeah. It sounds basic, but it's not. Yeah, I don't know how else to put it. I don't know how to put it eloquently.
In like a standard YCS event that's coming up, I mean, how much do you think is like an optimal time investment into like playtesting? And I guess as a follow-up question, what is considered efficient playtesting?
Everyone's different. I'm a very bad example of this. I'm actually not a good playtester because I get really bored really fast if I'm not playing for stakes. That's why I'm not playing right now. I don't feel enjoyment playing locals or extravaganzas, so that's why I've been fairly inactive. And in playtesting, you can ask any of my playtesting partners. Like I'm pretty bad to work with because I'll tune out and play other games, or watch TV instead, and I'll just be in the Discord call, not talking or paying attention. Um, what it should be though, and for me, the best way I've learned is when I'm actually playing. So, I got a lot better with the World's Grind. It kind of helped me because it forced me to be actively playing and just recognizing situations that keep reoccurring. Like, if my opponent goes engage like this, like I'm gonna call back to when I was really, really doing well was that Thunder Dragon Striker Salad era. I was playing a lot of regionals for Worlds points, and people like I would know when they did a certain play what they had, and I knew exactly what the best course of action was to beat it. When you practiced enough, it takes everyone a different amount of time to learn, but you should be able to see a scenario that's fairly common and know exactly what to do without thinking. Typically in tournaments where I'm prepared, I will never go to time. I will be extremely fast because you see most games will be fairly standard, and you should be able to quickly decide what to do. Shouldn't need to think about a standard opening for yours and your opponents. Obviously, there are some times where you face a situation that's extremely obscure, and you will need to think. But for the most part, you should be able to see a standard end field from your opponent and a standard hand from you. Know what to do immediately. There shouldn't have to be thinking. And the regionals helped with that. The testing, honestly, the testing for me is not great. The main thing I do with testing is test out ratios, and it's honestly more to like make my ideas physical. Like most of the like better actual testing I do is the deck building side and theory side, where I'd message Asala or some other people, and with ideas or opinions on how to beat a certain type of field, and then we'd actually test those concepts to make sure they work. But it would be pretty frequent, and when it gets overly repetitive, I tune out, and that's when I become hard to work with, and we have guinea pigs test it for us.
So what is the testing you mentioned there? Do you
the actual testing is going on Dueling Book, and so for example,
like setting up a typical turn one and then trying to.
We want to see. Okay, we want to say okay. How often does our deck lose to Ash? So I'll say okay. They draw Ash every time. We'll draw hands. We'll play. And we'll test Ash at every single point in that hand, and if there are any points where it actually hurt us, and if we could play it through Ash at any specific point in the entire turn, then we know we can play it through Ash. And if they could stop it at one point, we look at the weak spots, like, okay, how can we fix this? Was there a better way to do it? That's for more solitaire-ish type combos. That's a lot. I guess that's the other thing. Like, there's several different things to test. I guess that's kind of important for combo decks. But then also testing, like, how good a deck is. Like, do the end field actually pan out? Or we just set up a field against Appaloosa Revolts, and random hand trap will mix it every time. And we'll see, okay, does our idea actually beat this field consistently? I I haven't done that for this format, but so I think for the last time I did that for a similar-ish field was like when we were playing against Orcus the end of 2019. They'd be ending on their IP double with the Ding Engrave. That was like something to focus on because they had so many different options, and you can't like count on your opponent's mess ups. You want to say, okay, can I beat every single iteration of their defensive options consistently with this plan I have? So that's that type of testing. But that's like advanced, I guess. Like that's important. But that's if you want to play something that's non-standard as well. I think just being comfortable with standard situations is the most important thing. Like, I'll give Pack as an example. He was extremely comfortable with Prankids and knew how to maneuver each situation, and I think it's a big reason why he had some success. And this isn't meant as a slight, but obviously his deck wasn't innovative, really. At least maybe it was in Pranked realm, but I don't think it was fairly much more going for it. His win came at his expertise with the interactions. It didn't need to be innovative. It was just good enough. Him knowing each interaction point properly, right? He knew which matchups, what he was supposed to do to win the game, and that's how he did well there. So I think that is kind of how I test sometimes, but I think that's the wrong thing to focus on. It's if you want to kind of go against the meta, which I typically like to do, but I don't have to do well either.
By the way, your phone tilted upwards just a little bit.
Did it?
Yeah. So, I mean, going against the meta, like, what? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming that doesn't entail like, play rogue or something, right? Like, does that mean like trying to come up with combos and interactions in a typical meta deck that isn't standard, or actually just innovating upon like with a different deck? But I guess that's sort of contextual.
I mean, it just involves, I guess, seeing what the main and what the meta really is, and then breaking it down to not what decks they are, but what they're kind of excel at and what their weaknesses are. So, I guess the time that I did this, in the most different fashion, for 2019 Nationals, where I had my like obscure Mind Striker deck when I'd been playing Thunder for the last year, pretty much. That was kind of anti-meta, even though I guess a lot of people were playing Striker. And the reason for that was I tried and isolate every deck's weakness and strength. And Thunder, was like his basic weakness was Mystic Mind. So I decided I couldn't solve that issue. So I was like, okay, can I beat it then? And it involves just figuring out what the problems are in a format, trying to solve it, and then if I can find a solution, go with it. And sometimes I'll make a big miscalculation. For example, one of the LCSs earlier this year in January, I played this Eldritch Trap deck with like 30 traps in it and floodgates. And
was that the Hydra thing? It wasn't, was it?
Hydra?
No, that was the reptile thing.
No. That was a fun deck. I know that deck was awful. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Sure.
It's the one like Pack was using it recently, I think. They all like went further with the idea than I had, but originally I brought it back in January. Like I was just sick of the Drytron Amira, so you just counter trap.
I think I saw all of you top with like Divine Wrath and stuff again.
It was me. Yeah, Divine Wrath. It was me and Bowden played that deck, and then Asala played Drytron because he didn't want to play traps. So with that deck, we thought, okay, we'll beat the meta very convincingly. We can outvalue Virtual World if you play well. It's hard, but if you know how to do it, you'll win most of the time. And versus Drytron, as long as you see your proper hand, they don't have to reboot you, which they always did versus me that tournament, but you'll win. And what I did not account for, last round of day one, I'm playing against Cody, and I'm Adamantimator. This is just worse Drytron. I went look at my hand, I'm like, there's no way I lose. And then he goes IP. I'm like, that doesn't do anything. I set 5, and he goes, my turn, IP into access code. And I'm like, oh wait, I didn't think about this when I built my deck. I don't have an out to this now. Only out was Dynamiscus, and he can negate that, which meant I needed to draw Dynamiscus Strike, or I cannot beat access code IP. And the second he did that, everyone else also realized that in the tournament, that against my deck, if you went IP access code, they just beat me. That was really stupid. So that's an oversight that can happen when you try to go for these off the wall counter decks. Because if you didn't think about it, you just lose. And my tournament went from extremely easy to incredibly hard after that for just a big oversight on my end.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the principles of like the modern game and deck building and game design and stuff like that. As a general sort of sense, how do you feel about Yu-Gi-Oh right now, ignoring the fact that there's no real events and high stakes events to really partake in or attend to, but like what's your
I'm
general
not interested. I'm not interested in
like
Yu-Gi-Oh right
assuming
now.
you could go to an event tomorrow, YCS,
Yeah,
practice
so
like you normally do.
this is not a format I would enjoy. Yeah, I don't like Drytrons. To play against them is really annoying, and with them is kind of fun. But
I
airs
don't
are
know
awful.
what's unfun about playing against them. Do you think?
The fact that if it's played correctly, you can never win going second.
Is it just because like the pseudo floodgate style monster, or is that what
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So in general, I guess you're against those kind of cards, right?
I also don't like mid-range decks that can't play into themselves, like Tri Brigade. Like a Tri Brigade's engine can't beat another Tri Brigade, which is stupid. Which makes that mirror match not fun at all. I also really hated Orcus before people put striker cards in there, because that mirror match was the same thing. I hated that format so much because Orcus can't beat Orcus going second. Until people realized striker cards fixed that issue. But
so basically, just
fun.
anything with a bad mirror match.
Yeah, I love when a mirror match is good. Like Necros was a ton of fun. BA was a ton of fun. Like that 2019 was fun for me only because no one else played Thunder. But if it was Thunder mirror matches, I would have hated that as well. I think a healthy mirror is important because that means not playing rock paper scissors. I think actually one of the biggest culprits right now is Appaloosa. I really don't like that it gives every deck a generic monster. Like I think it does two things wrong. One, it like gives these super aggro combo decks a way to play through Nibiru, which is supposed to be a check to them. Where otherwise they should have to rely on engine outs like Orange Light that's specialized for a deck, not for any deck. But then also Appaloosa means that like any monster deck can't ever have engine outs to a mid-range deck, which is also kind of stupid. Like when I'm playing Drytron, when I play versus a mid-range deck, I should be able to play through their stuff. And if they don't have Appaloosa, you can. It's an actually interesting game where if I play properly, I can win. If I don't, I'll lose. And that's kind of like what Salad was, like Thunder versus Salad, because their only floodgate was Dweller, and that's a lot more manageable. But when you're playing Drytron versus Appaloosa, if you don't have enough to Appaloosa, you actually just can't do anything anyways. So it's not a fun matchup. You're still just being flooded out. So,
really interesting because Patrick mentioned that exact card earlier today.
I don't like the card. I think in general, I don't like generic cards that are so strong like that. That are also accessible so easily, like in the extra deck. I prefer when decks have their own unique tool set. So
okay.
I mean, Anaconda is kind of an offender of that, but it's not as bad because it requires you to make a lot more deck building concessions. It's also more restrictive in how you can play the rest of your turn afterwards.
Do you I don't know how much you've looked at the upcoming set at all, but have you thought about
I know everything. Yeah.
You know everything? Okay, all right. Well, so do you think that
I know what all the cards do. Yes.
Right. Do you know how that's or how do you feel? Like, do you think that's gonna shape up to be like a healthy format at all, or?
No, it doesn't fix. Like right now, the issue with Yu-Gi-Oh is not. Yeah, the staleness is kind of a thing. Like that's part of the reason why I don't want to play no new cards. But for it to be stronger, you need something to check the power levels, and that's just not there. Or you need something that's more powerful, is healthy to play a mirror match with.
Can you define what you mean by check power level?
Something to check power level, something like Nibiru brought down the power level of end of 2019 significantly, because Thunder now was a lot more restrictive in how it could compete. It had to be a lot more conservative with its resources, and a lot of people that did play Thunder moved to the pure version, which is a lot less oppressive to play against going second. Or you can have a ban list style where, in like Dragon Rulers, where they have that huge ban list. So it can be either or. There just needs something to make it where you can't go completely unchecked with these very strong combos. Or you can get better decks, like when we went from 2014 where we went into the Duelist Alliance format. Better decks, which should all be a Teller, brought new era Yu-Gi-Oh! Then no ban list there to make the format better. There's better decks, but the better decks were healthier to play mirrors with, so we could see that as well. And while Sword Soul and Flunderies are not awful decks, they're relatively similar power level to what we already have. So they'll be able to compete, but it won't any means fix the problem because those other decks will still be good. They'll still be tier 1, and the same issues will still exist. So yeah, I don't think it'll solve the issue. Unless maybe we'll have B Trooper cards that'll be tier 0, and I have doubts. Even those cards look like if they are good, it'll be for the wrong reasons. So I don't know. Search Scary Moth or whatever it's called, and flood your opponent out.
It's really interesting. I don't know. I hear a lot of people pass around like the current format is, you know, fine, and a ban list wasn't like super needed anyway because like the deck.
I actually don't think it was fine. No.
Okay. Well, what do you think?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. What are you saying?
Do you think? I guess it's not really a ban list issue per se. It's just maybe the cards, the pull itself is just needs invigoration of better decks, I suppose, or.
It's cards are stale, but I do think there are specific issues in the format. I think if you got rid of Ben 10 and Appaloosa, the format would be incredible. I think Prankets was such a healthy deck, so that going away also makes no sense. Or at least being hit. Maybe some other cards as well can join that list, but format's not that bad. But there are some perpetrators that stick out as unhealthy. Being coupled with also being old at this point, I'm curious as to why it is the way it is. Like,
how do you feel about a Sword Soul coming into the meta? Do you think that makes the game a little bit more healthier? I mean, from what I understand, that is a decently mid-range deck that has an okay mirror.
So I haven't tested the interactions enough to give you like this incredibly in-depth perspective. But from my first glance, Minasala played some games for the first time ever on his stream about a month ago. And from what it looked like in the mirror match, if you played 10E cards, your deck, or even if one player did or neither did, the person who had the 10Es had the advantage. But the 10Es made it like interesting, and it wasn't like flooding your opponent out, and you could rely on your engine cards to do pretty well. That's pretty good. But I don't know how it'll shape up. So like I don't know how relevant this will be. But my biggest fear is that like people will do some setup with like Scythe, Phoenix Enforcer, Dagda type stuff. I don't know how relevant that'll be, but that'll be very unfun to play against. So
is that a play in Sword Soul?
I can do it in any deck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like, you just mentioned it, but
that is so generic.
It's funny you just mentioned that, but with the I guess you know, we talked about this earlier with the other Duelist Academy guys, but I believe, you know, poster child of Burst of Destiny is like the big scary Phoenix Enforcer coming into the meta. How do you feel about that joining, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh as a new Dragoon per se? Do you think that's like
those cards are fine. Boss monsters like that are not that bad. Like it's one interaction point, some other things going on. It's fine. Like.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. I think if I actually had an issue, it is Scythe as a card, I think is a problem. Again, those generic type stuff is kind of annoying for me, like the Dagda Anaconda. But those are my favorite card design. If they were just playing 3 Fusion Destinies, even in a deck, I'd be okay with that as a engine. With the Anaconda, it's fine. I don't dislike it.
Have you seen OCG deck building recently? Like, do you think like that's kind of where we're headed at some point?
I think OCG deck building with a grain of salt, because their format is different, and also a lot of those events are locals, so they don't really have proper like
tournament
data
structure like we do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the data is not as reliable as you'd think. You have to be careful.
Fair. I just thought it was really interesting that you had like, you know, so many decks that had like almost like 15 identical cards, and then you just have it splashed between different archetypes. Like the
I don't mind that. That's not something I have a problem with. I mean, like old Yu-Gi-Oh was like that too. I think that was fine.
Okay.
It's just your staples kind of change, right? Your staples look weirder because they're combo based, but they're still staples if that's how you want to consider it.
Okay.
So instead of you're running your 3 MSTs, you're running your 3 Fusion Destinies.
I suppose that's one way to look at it, guys. You can clip that out of context if you want. 3 MST, 3 Fusion Destiny, same thing, right?
No, I don't think the card's overly oppressive. I think it is a good card. It is definitely going to impact the format. And it will be good at several points as long as it's legal. Do I think it'll be very unhealthy? No. I think specifically removal effects are not that big of a deal typically. It's the negations that are extremely troubling. That's a 1 for 1. Like, it's not that bad.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I've personally, I felt like not been super hyped with the game recently and stuff, and I don't know if that's just like maybe in general, like format after format, I'm not like super into like whatever is happening with the current meta game or something, but I just feel like modern like deck building and technical play has like changed a lot since when I first started. But I could be wrong about that because I wasn't very good when I started either, or now. But like it just seems like decks sometimes build themselves, and the technical play is like linear in a sense, but also influenced heavily by whatever the cookie cutter hand trap meta is. I don't know how wrong I am about that, but
some stuff stays the same, some doesn't. I mean, that's change is bound to happen. What decks did you particularly have in mind for things that build themselves?
I mean, if you look at something like a Prank Kids deck, like you could probably isolate, like
I find besides Prank Kids.
I mean, I suppose like maybe it's like a social media thing, at least compared to before, but decks seem to solve themselves very quickly. Like you see like someone do well with Tri Brigade, for example, and that's like a deck that I think is very almost linear, right? Because that is a deck that's like a 20 card engine, and then you take
that,
like what.
But like whatever... there were variations on that though. People were trying out different stuff before.
Mm-hmm.
People had to test out. You play the quick play spell, so it may look linear at this point, and at this point now because you already have the base stats to go off of what's good. Get this easy deck, but originally it wasn't like that, so I actually don't think that's true. I think for mid-range decks it's a little more true. I think Virtual World is kind of like that because the deck has very few cards to actually play with. It has to play everything because it doesn't have much options. Like Drytron, for example,
the rate at which
but yeah,
maybe it is just like the rate at which the format like develops with social media and Dueling Book and things like that.
I think that is part of it, and also maybe you're just you're particularly maybe not used to being as involved. One thing. There still will be stuff changing, right? And the other thing as well is the format's not adapting as much because when you go back to like when Yu-Gi-Oh was played more frequently, when you had a YCS every 2 weeks across the world, the meta would have to adapt a slight amount from every YCS to YCS. Like if you're playing a striker deck and your strikers did very well the last YCS, your striker deck now is going to be built a little more to the mirror match. So the core engine will almost always stay the same regardless. It's kind of building itself. But the cards that are meta dependent will change more frequently because there's more events for them to change between. Where now like there's no reason for them to change. You also don't have these main bigger name players forcing the innovation happen on that smaller level because they have no reason to. It's time consuming and energy consuming, right? To put that thought into the game. So no one's going to do it if they don't have a reason to.
Good points. Just to round off, I wanted to ask you, what are some on both sides of the spectrum? Like, what do you think are some positives you see from Yu-Gi-Oh in recent, like in these coming like months? Like, what are like the positives in terms of like the balance of the format, the new decks or whatever, and then conversely like the negatives you see going forward with like the upcoming couple of sets and this new recent ban list?
So the next couple sets look good. This is important because the last couple sets have been really bad. At least from my perspective, I can see behind me I got cases of product. I sell cards, so when I have these shit sets, I got stuck with bad product. So from my perspective, I guess, I mean, it's better for the market and for keeping the game active is to have good sets, and it does freshen up the game as well.
Good for vendors. Understood.
but also, it is nice to even have new decks to play against and to learn, even if it's not a whole tier above what we currently have, even if it's on the same level. Still forces you to learn new interaction points, the whole new set of decks. Like, now I need to learn Drytron versus Sword Soul, Tri Brigade versus Sword Soul, and that'll create some new interesting stuff for a while. I mean, it may get stale incredibly fast, but it's
So
something.
those like choke points and stuff you were mentioning earlier, but just with new decks essentially. I'm trying to figure out
So,
like
yeah, you'll have a chance to rediscover the game a little bit, and then it may get boring, as stuff can. And I think it doesn't help with the base that everything's being added to is pretty boring to begin with. I think it may be my perspective, because without being able to travel, which was a big reason why I played, and without stakes, there's definitely a big detractor for me from wanting to play. So maybe I'm a little biased. Other good stuff going forward is it looks like maybe soon we'll get events back. I really hope so. I'd love to travel. Let's hope. And I know that before the pandemic happened, they were going to have this UDS tournament where everyone who's won a UDS would be taken to or flown out to Cali.
Oh yeah, didn't that get canceled?
For some other cool prize. Well, it got postponed. Like, it's still going to happen, but
okay.
I can only imagine they'll tell us.
Wasn't it like some like mega prize or something to do with like?
Yeah, they just said they were gonna make it like nice. So, it's kind of a mystery, right? But it was still like this incredibly unique invitational type tournament. And I'm kind of hoping that Konami will use that as trial to see how in-person events can do, just to bring people out to a real life physical setting. So that'd be cool. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know if it's in the next couple months or ever even happening. I assume it is, though, but that's like something I'm looking forward to. Although that's definitely on a personal level because it's a 16-player tournament.
Yeah. It's really funny that you mentioned that because I remember very, very enthusiastically watching you play through that NA not last chance qualifier, the World's Points qualifier tournament at Nationals.
That finals match is one of my favorite matches ever. It was just I felt so awesome ending it the way it did, and then like my heart sank. I bricked going first game 3 in that match. I drew engage for turn.
Perhaps like second to only Invoked, the most boring deck I find to watch Sky Striker, and somehow you managed to make it exciting. It's unreal.
I felt the energy in the room as well with the match. That match was so cool. Like I really don't like Striker that much, but it does have a special little place in my heart because of that. Those 3 rounds I played, those were so cool.
Yeah.
And that
what was the structure for that? I can't even remember. It wasn't single Elim, was it?
It was single Elim. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, isn't that just crazy? Like,
it was awful. I hate that. And that's the reason why I didn't play Thunder for that was, despite going undefeated at the YCS before that with Thunder and 2 regionals prior with Thunder. It's like at that point, like, wow, why would I not play Thunder? Well, I'm like, well, if I lose one match to some stupid Mystic Mind deck that's growing in popularity, or to a mirror match because I lost to die roll, I feel so awful. I tried really hard to figure out a solution, and I was able to. That was that weird Striker deck. But if I wasn't, I would have just done what Gabe did and said, all right, hope I don't play any mirror matches. Entered with a Thunder deck and ride it out. And for Gabe, it works out. He didn't play a mirror, so he was able to just free roll the tournament and go to Worlds.
Can I just say, like,
yeah, sorry.
I just sorry to cut you off there, but the mental fortitude that it requires to remove that personal, natural human bias where I've literally won a tournament with this deck. I've gone undefeated with this deck, and I'm just not going to play that deck. Like, how do you overcome that? That's just crazy to me.
That format was definitely like the craziest. That whole several months was definitely at the top when I was at the top of my game. Like, I went regional to regional, not losing match. Even in Swiss at the Nationals, because I'd already qualified, I gave my deck to Asala. Here you can play my Striker deck, and then I just started off 7-0 in Swiss with Thunder still. So that was very interesting. Try to base every decision I do off of strict logic, because I think that's the best way to go about things. Have a rational
care about your feelings, huh?
I am cold and calculated.
Yeah, that's so interesting, but also so admirable as well. Jesse, if there's anything you wanted to talk about or bring up or shout out or anything, like, feel free. Your chances now.
I guess not too much. You've been watching the Dual Night episodes, right? I know you host parties.
Oh my god, dude! Your episode.
How was that? That was. No, that was a crane. Sorry,
I
a
mean,
crazy episode. I did see your Twitter post. Snatch
this
steals
is
was
this is what I
insane, but
said at the
yeah.
very start. Like when you watch like, you know, a good player, like Sam, I feel like is a good player. I mean, he's got like tops and stuff. Like he's a strong player.
Sam and Steven are decent players.
Yeah. But
Like
then like there is
yeah.
a clear gap between a good player and like someone who's literally like legend status in my mind. Like, and that's you, right? Like the gap is like you can see it, like just that next level. It's crazy. And I just it was just amazing to watch. It was definitely like the best episode of Duel Night. And it's only on episode 4.
Oh yeah,
So
I mean
I don't
there's
know.
more. Yeah. That was episode 3. Yeah, lucky number 3.
3, yeah, there you go.
Oh, we're on number 4 now. Yeah. So I'll be on episode number 6 though. Again, we just filmed it on Saturday.
Nice,
I'm,
nice.
I'm looking forward to you guys getting to see that. Legacy of Darkness. So
Does
it'll be
that have
fun.
anything good in it? Or did you like specifically pick that one?
It has Last Turn in it.
Mm.
You guys will see. I don't want to spoil anything, obviously.
Okay, that's awesome. One random question. Do you watch Progression Series?
No, I don't like to be mean, but I don't like watching Yu-Gi-Oh when the plays are not good because it honestly just makes me upset and like, and I don't want to put myself in this situation. And as nicely as possible to Simone Gage, they're pretty bad. Like Sam and Trip are decent. Those two are definitely a step below that. Like,
oh, did you enjoy me and Sam's Wheel series at all? Did you watch that at all?
what is that?
A little bit. Huh?
I don't know what that is.
Wow. Wow.
I don't really watch Yu-Gi-Oh.
Wow.
I watched your.
What is that? Megalo. Jesse
I've
just
watched,
Megalo.
wait, you're not talking about the recent one when you play side sets, right? That I've watched that.
Oh yeah, no. The recent side sets that's like coming out on YouTube soon. But I mean, like the one before that, right? Like the Wheel of Yu-Gi-Oh. You know, where you get like an attribute and a type, and then you build things with an attribute and a type.
Oh, I think I tried watching 10 minutes of one, and you both got some really, really awful decks, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this. Like, it was just stupid, like something dinosaur only, and neither of you could even build a real deck. You're both playing garbage. So
yeah, that was like
it just looked awful.
Yeah, it was like light
like
dino.
this just
That
looks,
was
yeah, like that. I'm like,
that was a particularly bad episode.
Why
Yeah.
you couldn't do anything? I'm like, why would I watch this? This is so boring. So
Yeah,
that was the only one I like kind of watched, and it just didn't look interesting, so I turned it off.
Yeah, it's some of the more recent ones were like enjoyable because it was like we rolled like archetypes instead of like these weird combinations that only have like 7 cards.
I've done that type of thing with my friends where we'd get a random generator to generate 2 decks, and we'd have to mix them together without staples and that type of thing, and that's incredibly fun. But when you want to build with type as an attribute, you can get these obscure things that don't exist, and then you get nothing. Which like Dino, you have a conductor. And
the OG
Tyranno
Conductor,
Infinity, and like you have your deck only has 9 monsters in it. So what are you supposed to do? Like,
hard draw, fiber jar, and double evil pill. Apparently, yep.
Fiber jar? Wait, what?
Yes, because we had like the staple wheel as well. Anyway, we don't need to go into it.
God.
It wasn't great. But yeah, no.
So maybe I just got unlucky and picked a bad episode because that was a turn off for me.
I think the new one should be really fun. The new one that me and Sam are doing are pretty good. Because the side sets in Yu-Gi-Oh are good.
Oh, the new series, you mean? Yeah, the new series has been good, except for the McDonald's pack crap. Like that's what's the
yeah, there
point
wasn't
of that?
much in there.
Nothing in there.
Yeah. Oh, have you
what-
watched my traditional at all? Do you like traditional? Is that a thing? Do you care?
Oh,
Probably
I can't
not.
stand. I can't stand traditional.
Have you tried to take it seriously ever?
My friend forced me to play it with him years ago, but
Okay.
before Lynx. So
I'm sure you could give like a billion reasons, but what's the problem with traditional?
one-ofs. I can't I hate one-ofs because it means there's no predictability in what to expect. So you can't build a proper deck. So you're forced to just if I can't predict what my opponent's doing, so I can't counter the strategy with my own cards, I have to focus on making my own deck as good as possible. And that just ends up with everybody who's building the deck properly in a sense to be kind of in these jerk-off decks that just are super, super OP. They should be.
Well,
and then when you
funny
get
say
something
that
like Max
because-
Speed, you just hate yourself. Like,
See, it's funny you say that because I don't know if you've watched any of my traditional tournament, but it's
I
just
have
Zoo
not.
mirrors. It's just Zoo. It's just Zoo.
Okay, but you still can't expect the Maxi to come down, right? Like, I hated when Maxi went to 1, because before, when it was at 2, at least in Zoo format, like, I played this grass deck with like 2 mana cores. I knew what could happen, so I was prepared. With 1 Maxi, the chance of it happening is just so low that I'm not going to prepare for it. And when it does happen, like with Imperial Order right now, I'll just throw a fit and be upset. Like, I don't know. I just don't want to be subject to a bunch of random one of bullshit floodgates.
Yeah.
And that's just what will happen. If it was 3 of everything, be more tolerable, weirdly, but it would also probably just be OTKs. You know, I can't imagine it not being OTKs now. Like, I'm surely like Zeus sounds like a good starting point because it can play theoretically the best going second and also do a lot going first. But truly, it's just FTKs going first as well, right?
There's a few FTKs, but they're just so inconsistent because of the hand trap.
Okay, no, not literal FTKs,
like yeah, like
breakable
I think
fields.
Adamancipator is the best combo deck in Trad so far that people have come up with. Because it does literally play through like infinite hand traps.
Okay, but what hand traps? Like it's just Maxi.
I mean, like the Dimension Shifter is pretty insane in Trad, for example.
Oh, Shifter, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, sure. I mean, I can see it, but I don't want to deal with it. Like,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jesse. I appreciate you coming on. I could sit and listen to you discuss the game and talk to you all day about Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's a pleasure, and I hope to see you again at some point. Chat, if you don't already know, this is the Duelist Academy boys. They're streaming on Twitch. They have Patreon content that you can take part in and sign up for and get coaching and personalized strategies and etc., and all the usual good stuff. So if any of my mods can post that in the chat, feel free. Appreciate it.
Also got a website for my card sales as well, propotatocards.com. You can check out.
Propotatocards.com.
Yeah, so you can check out that, and if you want to get better, Duelist Academy is for sure the way to go.
There you go. All right, thank you again, Jesse. I'll see you later. Take care.
Peace.
What, boys? There you go. That's the links.